What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Urban Platform Speaks. And I want to talk about a discussion I was having earlier with some friends of mine. And basically, we were talking about the fact, like, what if Kevin Durant had never went to Golden State? Won those two championships that he won. So, and I believe that had Kevin Durant, in my opinion, had he never went to Golden State and won those two championships, his legacy probably wouldn't be that great. You know, he would go down as like one of the greatest pure scorers in the game. But other than that, I don't think his legacy, especially with him moving from team to team. Had he not won those two rings in Golden State, I just don't think his legacy would be looked at favorable. I think, and the fact that Steph Curry, and I think Steph Curry really, in my opinion, should get credit for helping, put a positive spin on Kevin Durant's legacy. And when I said that earlier to some friends of mine, they they disagreed. They disagreed and said that Kevin Durant was the best ball player on that team. And I countered by saying that maybe he was the best player on that team, but it was not his team. That was Steph Curry's team, number one. And number two, Steph Curry had already won a championship without Kevin Durant. And so even when Kevin Durant left, Steph Curry won another championship. And Kevin Durant has never won. He didn't win before he got to Golden State. And he hasn't won a championship since he's left Golden State. Now, if Kevin Durant had, if he had either won a championship before he went there or a championship after, then I would say that his legacy is one that he created for himself. That like something that he had built something. But Kevin Durant never proved that he could take his own team and lead them, to a championship. He got close, but he didn't do it. And so I think that a big part of his success, the major part of his success rests more so on Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors' shoulders than it do his. He just, to me, really basically just came along for a ride, and I know people don't like to hear that, but the reason why I feel like that is because Kevin Durant, and from his own mouth, said he just want to hoop. He just want to show up and hoop. And when you playing professional basketball and you want to go down as one of the greatest, and you want to, you want to have the best legacy that you possibly can, you have to be willing to weather those storms. You got to be willing to persevere and take your game to that next level. It's not all about always the pieces that the team can put around you. Is sometimes you have to make do with what you have. You have to be able to get there with what the team put around you. But he's never stayed at one place long enough for a team to be able to build around him and create, the kind of foundations where as though he can just do his work, do what he do, lead the team and make the team, and make his teammates better. But he's never done that. He didn't step up to that challenge when it comes to, leading a team and making his teammates better. He just wanted to hoop, and for somebody who wants to have the legacy of like a LeBron James, or the legacy of like Steph Curry, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, all those guys, he won't have that type of legacy because he didn't lead a team. That, like I said, the championships he won was because of Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors. They had already built that foundation, and he benefited Kevin Durant benefited from the foundation that they had created. And he never gave any team that he played for the opportunity to create a foundation and, like that would surround him with the talent that he needed. Even when he left OKC, if he had say he never went to Golden State, he'd just left OKC and went to to Brooklyn, right? Or he'd went to the Knicks. Like a good general manager would have been able to put the talent, sometimes it would have took a little longer or maybe, but with a player of his caliber, a franchise type ball player like him, they would have put the talent around him, but he never, he just wanted to chase rings and he felt like he had to have rings immediately. It really just hurt his legacy. It didn't do as much for his legacy as he could have done for himself, riding on Steph Curry's coattails. And that's basically how I see those two championships. I see those two championships as him riding on Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors coattail. And the thing about Steph Curry is Steph Curry, he accepted Kevin Durant onto the team, with open arms. He didn't make any waves. He just went along with the program. Didn't cause any issues. There was no problem with like who's gonna be the leader, who's gonna be the alpha. Steph Curry just went along with the program. And even in doing that for Steph Curry, that to me just gave Steph Curry more leverage and more equity as far as like it endeared him to the team. It endeared him to the organization, to the fans, everybody. It just, people say, wow, if you got a guy like Steph Curry who's willing to accept somebody like Kevin Durant, and they wound up winning, so it was a good look for Steph Curry. It just makes Steph Curry look good. The same way that with Dwayne Wade at Miami, what the things that he did for LeBron as, stepping back and allowing LeBron to take the lead down there and showing LeBron how to win. That was a good look for Dwayne Wade. So that's what, I think that I'm not sure like what legacy will, he have, because if it wasn't for those 2 years, the time that he spent in Golden State with those two championships, I would think that he would be, in my opinion, considered like an underachiever. And even with the two championships, I think he underachieved. I because as talented as Kevin Durant is, I still do not think that Kevin Durant really maxed out his. I don't think that he maxed out his talent, and not from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint. He just never challenged himself mentally, whereas though he got mentally tough, and and dominated in the league. He didn't do that. He just showed up, like he said, and hooped. And that wasn't enough, for somebody who had the talent that he had. And so if it wasn't for Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, people, I think more people would be considering him as someone who underachieved, so that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I will check you all out in the next video.